beneath the cooling water. Opening on a map, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is a point that is easy to overlook. It sits on the left bank of the Dnipro River, near a small city called Enerhodar. But if you pull back, this single point supplied 1/4 of Ukraine's electricity before the war. 6 reactors, 1 gigawatt each, brought online in the final years of the Cold War. By now, they have been running for 30 to 40 years. In March 2022, Russian forces captured the plant. From that moment on, it was no longer Ukraine's power heart. It became a bomb without a fuse, placed in the center of Europe. IAEA Director General Rafael Grossi once said that firing weapons near a nuclear power plant is playing with fire. But those who play with fire have never stopped. Shelling, power outages, damaged radiation detectors, spent fuel containers struck by rockets. These are not predictions. These are things that have already happened. But the most dangerous thing is not above ground. Underground, in the deepest part of the cooling system. A threshold that could be crossed at any moment. That is the real trigger point. The secret of cooling water. After a nuclear reactor stops generating power, the most dangerous thing has only just begun. This is something many people do not know. In the Chernobyl disaster, what pushed the catastrophe out of control was not the explosion itself. It was the meltdown, the nuclear fuel, without cooling, burning through its own containment and releasing radioactive material into the atmosphere. All 6 reactors at Zaporizhzhia have been shut down since 2022. But the word shutdown is deceiving. A shutdown does not mean safe. The reactor cores and the spent fuel pool still contain nuclear fuel. It is still decaying. It is still generating heat. It needs cooling water to flow continuously, carrying that heat away. This is the plant's lifeline. Before the war, that lifeline came from the Kakhovka Reservoir. Water from the Dnipro was pumped into a cooling pond, then circulated through the cooling systems of all 6 reactors. The volume of water required each day is a number an ordinary person cannot imagine. In June 2023, the Kakhovka Dam was destroyed. The reservoir's water level plummeted. The source of cooling water became a question mark hanging over everyone's heads. IAEA experts have been monitoring one question ever since. Is there still enough water, and how much longer will it last? 6 lines, 5 cut. The plant's survival depends not only on water, it also needs electricity. This is a counterintuitive fact. Even when a nuclear plant is not generating power, it still needs external electricity to keep its safety systems running. Pumps need electricity. Cooling systems need electricity. Monitoring and ventilation need electricity. If external power is cut, the plant starts its diesel generators as backup. But diesel generators are not designed for long-term operation. After the plant was seized in 2022, the high-voltage transmission lines connecting it to Ukraine's power grid were repeatedly damaged. Among the 6 reactors' power output lines, one was designed to draw external power during shutdown. This line is the critical link. By 2024, the situation had deteriorated to the point where the IAEA described it as fragile. In May 2025, the last 330 kilovolt backup line went down. The plant was left with only a single 750 kilovolt main line. A few months later, that line also went down. The plant lost all external power. IAEA Director General Grossi said this was the 10th blackout at the plant since the war began, and the longest. The plant was running on emergency diesel generators, the final line of defense. Backup fuel could last about 20 days. Repairing the lines would require crossing the front line. It would require both sides of the war to agree on the same thing. In war, that has never been easy. What lies underground? Now we can answer that question. What lies beneath the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant? Not a secret laboratory, not a hidden weapons cache. Something worse than those. Underground lie the pipes of the cooling system. Part of the core cooling loops for all 6 reactors runs beneath concrete and soil. These pipes draw water from the cooling pond, and the cooling pond's water level is dropping. In an August 2025 report, the IAEA noted that the cooling pond level had fallen to 13.4 meters, less than 1.5 meters above the 12-meter failure threshold. 12 meters. The bottom line. Below this level, the pumps cannot draw water from the cooling pond. When that happens, the water used to cool the reactor cores and the spent fuel pools can no longer circulate. Residual heat will accumulate. Water temperature will rise. In the worst-case scenario, the fuel rod cladding will rupture. Radioactive material will enter the cooling water loop. If the diesel generators also run out of fuel, if, in the end, there is no way to restart the pumps, then the nuclear fuel will begin to burn through itself. That is not an explosion, that is a meltdown. A Chernobyl-like disaster. Molten nuclear fuel burning through the foundation, contaminating groundwater. That is a silent, irreversible death. Some analysts believe Russia may have plans to restart at least one reactor to supply power to occupied areas. But restarting would require massive amounts of cooling water. After the loss of the Kakhovka reservoir, whether this condition still exists is a question that has not been publicly answered. 15 people and a cooling tower. In October 2025, the IAEA finally brokered a rare temporary ceasefire. Both sides agreed to halt military action in the area where the transmission lines were to be repaired. Workers operated in narrow corridors cleared of mines, trying to reconnect the plant's lifeline. This was the 10th blackout and possibly the longest. The sound of backup diesel generators continued for weeks inside the underground facilities. That sound has a special rhythm, like a heartbeat, but more mechanical, less reliable. The IAEA team is permanently stationed at the plant. Their job is to observe, measure, report. They have no authority, no weapons, not even a guarantee of their own safety. In photographs from the site, they wear bulletproof vests instead of white lab coats. 15 people, that is the number per rotation. Hidden in these observers' reports is one detail that few have noticed. In August 2025, they saw smoke and scorched trees near the cooling tower. Not just one tree, a small area. No craters, no explosion marks. The scorched trees formed a strip, as if something passing overhead had left behind heat. The plant has not explained this. Looking outward. A nuclear plant's true lifespan is not measured from the day its reactors were started. It is measured from the day cooling water stops flowing through those pipes. The Zaporizhzhia plant can never return to its pre-war state. The Kakhovka reservoir's water level will not rise again. The pipes damaged by shelling, the valves clogged by debris, every maintenance check interrupted by war. All of these have left irreversible damage on the plant's body. But the most tormenting question is another. If the cooling water is truly insufficient, if the water level finally crosses that 12-meter line, what will happen? No one knows the exact answer, because no one has ever run this experiment on a large operating nuclear plant with 6 reactors. IAEA experts have a code name for this scenario. They call it Day Zero. But what Day Zero means and what happens after Day Zero, that part is not written in any public report.